Hey everyone, welcome to another top 10 video. In today's video, my picks for top 10 modern creatures, I guess of all time, but these are the ones that I would pick. I'm sure you would pick slightly different. I also picked creatures that were not banned, at least up till today's date, so keep that in mind. And let's get to it. Before we do though, if you haven't already, I would really appreciate your subscription today. Hit that subscribe button down below and even that like button. Those 2 clicks actually really help out with YouTube algorithm and helping others find me, so I'd really appreciate your support. So before we start with this list, I feel like I had to set some cards aside as honorable mentions because it wouldn't be fair. They would take up too much of the space of this list. So I would put these all at number 0 because these are all cards that I personally love and trying to shove into any deck I can in Modern. So let's take a look at them real quick. Tarmogoyf obviously would be top 2. Hooting Mandrills was just such a fun card to play alongside Stepper Denial. Savage Knuckleblade, which I feel was probably like a couple of points away from being super playable in Modern, and it would definitely be on my list. Huntmaster of the Fells, of course, would be on my list. My god, I love that card. And of course, I am Delver of Brews, and the name did stem from Delver of Secrets. Top 3 cards alongside Huntmaster of the Fells and Tarmogoyf in all of Magic for me. So these are cards that are not on my list. They're all tied at 0 because that's just how it is. So here we go, number 10, Noble Hierarch. This card is not just a mana dork. It's seen play in so many decks that don't play one of those colors, apart from green, obviously. So I've seen Noble Hierarch in plenty of decks where there's no white or there's no blue. And that's just because it does a lot. It does more than just provide you mana. I mean, take a look at the decks that play it. I mean, humans, yes, humans can play 5 colors, and Noble Hierarch works there. But there's also humans that don't necessarily play all 5 colors, and yet you still want to play Noble Hierarch because Noble Hierarch has Exalted. And that makes a huge difference. Sometimes you could just win games of Noble Hierarch, at least if you're playing Infect, which I have done myself, and I'm sure you have all seen yourselves in the past. But even like Ponza decks used to play Noble Hierarch, or still do in some form. Spirit decks play Noble Hierarch. They all play Noble Hierarch. And it just helps you win battles, helps you close out games a bit easier. Multiples are always nice because of the Exalted ability. It's just one of your best mana dorks, and it's sometimes just more than a mana dork. So that's my number 10. Number 9, Siege Rhino. This card, oh man, this card made Abzan super playable in Modern for a long time until, the power creep, kept creeping, and eventually some pieces went away, like Birthing Pod, and some pieces just weren't as useful anymore, and now Abzan is not really a 3-color combo you see very often. But when you did, and when Siege Rhino was basically the best creature in Modern, or one of the best ones, whew, really fun to play. 6-point life swing, 4/5 body, trample for 4. Yeah, I mean, even today, it's not that bad, but obviously you're doing way more things by the time you get to 4 mana, so Siege Rhino's gone. But it was really fun when it was out there. I had a lot of fun with it. I definitely didn't have fun playing against it. But my Tarmogoyfs got pretty big in my Temur Delver shells, so they could usually stand up to Siege Rhino, but not a lot of other creatures could at the time. So Siege Rhino is my number 9. Number 8, Dreadhorn Arcanist. This was a late bloomer in Modern, actually, and it's so funny that it had a very short time window for it to be alive, because the power creep was just so insane. But for a while, and you still see some play with it in some black-red decks, but for a while, Dreadhorn Arcanist was just a thing, and I really enjoyed playing with it. You didn't want to be too cute with it and pump it up so you could cast like more expensive spells in the graveyard. Of course, you could do that, the Tarkus Command coming to mind. But it was just fun to, recur your Lightning Bolt several times in the game, or get a Serum Visions if you're stuck. Whatever it is, there was always something in Modern in your graveyard that you could target. My favorite, though, is using Become Immense. Now, you use Become Immense on Dreadhorn Arcanist in your main phase, and then when you attack with it, you could target Become Immense, because your power is greater. So, boom, all of a sudden you have like a 13, 16, or 15, whatever the math is, Dreadhorn Arcanist with Trample, and sometimes you just win the game that way, and I've done that, and it's hilarious. So, Dreadhorn Arcanist is my number 8. Number 7, Stoneforge Mystic. Not a card I played a lot with, but I think you still have to respect this card, because it's just, been a mainstay ever since it was unbanned. I believe it was banned. My memory is so horrible now in Modern. I've been playing it too long, but yes, I'm almost certain Stoneforge Mystic was banned at some point, and now it is not. And yeah, it's making a lot of artifacts more playable again. Batterskull kind of fell off when Blue Moon fell off many years ago, and now it's back, and now you have that stupid Cauldron Complete card, which is just absurd, that everyone said was not going to see plain Stoneforge decks, and now it's in all the Stoneforge decks. Anyway, more people disagreeing with Delver when Delver is right, inevitably. Stoneforge Mystic is number 7, and I don't think you can really argue with this power level in Modern. Dark Confidant. There was a time when Jund was more than just the meme that it is today, and Dark Confidant ruled the roost. It was just a value engine. It was a card advantage engine. Yeah, you might hurt yourself a lot with a Liliana that might end up bolting yourself, but it just helped you win games. That card advantage, and yeah, I mean, Jund decks, black decks in general, just really enjoyed Dark Confidant. Every once in a while, if you weren't careful, it would kill you, which is a problem, because you have to be careful with it. But generally speaking, for years, Dark Confidant was kind of like a mainstay. It was always a 3 of or 4 of in Jund decks and a lot of black X decks, and I think for me, it definitely fits in at number 6. Number 5, Snapcaster Mage. Again, there was a time where Snapcaster Mage was just a 4 of or a 3 of in any deck that played blue, and that wasn't some sort of combo deck. Even today, you still see your fair amount of Snapcaster Mages. Sometimes it's the only creature in the deck, and of course, a lot of your control decks play it. I mean, just go look at any deck playing Snapcaster Mage now. 99 out of 10 of them are control decks, and there's a reason for that. It just helps you recur a lot of cards like Counterspell, like Permission Spells, Cryptic Command being one of them, but Counterspell now as well. Your removal spells as well, or board wipes, whatever it may be. You just see it in a lot of control lists, and it's still pretty good. It's not the best, but it's still pretty good. There's a reason why it's still an expensive card, even though it's been reprinted many times. Definitely my number 5. Number 4, Monastery Swiftspear. So, I mean, a lot changed when this card was printed. It's one of the best red 1-drops that red has. Haste Prowess, it's not uncommon to have 1 or 2 of these by turn 2, dealing you a significant amount of damage. And, you know, there's not a lot here. There's not a lot you need to cast to make a Monastery Swiftspear become, like, almost game-ending before your opponent has anything that they can do to stop it. If they have no removal, they're in trouble. There's a lot of things you could cast that are either free or whatever, like Mutagenic Growth being an example. And yeah, just I think sometimes people underestimate how much Monastery Swiftspear changed the format in many ways as a creature. And I definitely think it deserves a spotlight here at number 4. Alright, number 3, 2, and 1. I think you're going to see a pattern here. I'll let you know at number 1 what that pattern is. Murktide Regent is my number 3 right now. And, I mean, this card, when it was... I mean, I'm still excited about it because it's a dragon that's super playable in, like, my Temur Delver decks or just tempo decks in general. So I'm happy. I love dragons, and I love tempo, and this fits. Of course, it's really pushing power level. There's a reason why. You see 4 copies of a 7 CMC 3/3 flyer in a lot of decks at the top of the tier, at the top of the format now, because it's just not that hard to get cards into your graveyard in Modern, and it's not that hard to cast a couple of these in a game. And, I mean, can you argue Murktide Regent's power level? I can't. There's just, I don't know, there's so few cards you could compare it to now. I mean, before it existed, if I was playing a tempo deck, Hooting Mandrills would take its spot. But now that Murktide exists, it's very hard to justify Hooting Mandrills. This is just better as the Delve creature in almost every single way. So Murktide Regent is my number 3. Number 2, Ragavan. Yeah, it's not my number 1. Maybe it is for some of you, but not for me. I was always lukewarm on Ragavan. Obviously, it's a great card. Everyone's playing a 4 of or a 3 of it, even though it's a legendary creature. Obvious push and power level, but it's only really good in turns 1 or 2. And I think it took a while for people to realize that. I think people have now realized that, and Ragavan has adjusted, but it's still the second most popular card in Modern right now. It's still showing up so often in decks. I think it's like almost 20% of Modern decks. So that's still very high, and I can't deny Ragavan's power level. But I still think it's still, it's still somewhat overrated, just a little bit. It's really good if it hits face, but the minute it doesn't, it sucks, and it sucks in multiples, and it almost certainly sucks late game. So you have to keep that in mind. You have to, you know, craft your decks accordingly. But I mean, the numbers don't lie. It's super popular, super powerful, and I enjoy playing with it when I do. But I definitely don't shove it into every reg deck just because it's Ragavan. It has to make sense, right? So there we go, is number 2. And number 1. All right, so what was the pattern here? Number 3, 2, and 1 all came out in the past 6 months. Yeah, all in the same set as well. I mean, Modern Horizons 2 was a great set. It really introduced a lot of powerful tools to Modern, definitely upgraded the format, which I'm happy about. And I think it's pretty telling because in my list, the top 3 are all new cards. Dragon's Rage Channeler has been a very emotional card for me. I mean, emotional at least in the MTG sense. And that's because, well, it almost completely invalidates Delver of Secrets. Almost. Now, obviously, I'm severely biased. I'll always say that I'd rather play Delver of Secrets and Dragon's Rage Channeler together in a deck as opposed to one or the other. But Dragon's Rage Channeler does a very, very good Delver impression. Almost better than Delver in almost every way. You know, remember, Delver of Secrets, when it was unflipped, was just a 1/1 creature. Whereas Dragon's Rage Channeler, without Delirium, is a 1/1 creature with Surveil every time you cast a non-creature spell. That alone is an upgrade, obviously. This is an obvious statement. But once it has Delirium, it's a 3/3 as opposed to a 3/2, and it still has Surveil for every non-creature cast. So it's just a tack-on ability. It's not changing it to Insectile Aberration, where now it's a 3/2 flyer or, you know, whatever. So, you know, the only real downside of DRC is that it must attack once it's Delirious, which is a downside, by the way, but not the biggest downside, and it definitely overshadows Delver of Secrets, you know, minor, you know, the power downs, obviously, in comparison. So DRC is my number 1. It's technically the new Delver. I'm not the only person to say that. I'll still try and play both in the same deck, but sometimes it's hard to justify that, and definitely my number 1. So that's for my top 10. Let me know what you think your top 10 would be. Let me know what you think of my choices. I would love to hear from you down below. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you enjoy my content in general, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. It really goes a long way. It helps me out a lot. If you want to become a member here on YouTube, hit that join button, which should be in and around that subscribe button. Check out the different membership tiers and the different perks you get at each tier. You know, I'd love to have you as part of my YouTube community officially as a member. And I think the membership tiers are pretty interesting, have some cool little features in there. So check it out. I would really appreciate your support. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, share my content on social media, watch my content start to finish like you're doing right now. It really does go a long way, so thank you for that. Lastly, if you want to become a patron, check out the Patreon link in the description of this video. Check out the Patreon rewards program. In a nutshell, you give me money every month. I use that money to buy a sealed product, which I open up on this channel, and then I give you back that money in the form of rares and mythics at the end of every year. The longer you're a patron, the more rares and mythics you get. Basically 1 rare mythic for every month that you're a patron. And the value of those rares are anything really between $3 and $15. Some of them go even higher, as you know. So even if you average out about $5 per rare, that's $5 a month, you get your money back, but odds are you'll make more. Anyway, all that information is on Patreon. There's a video on there that explains it all. We really appreciate your support either way. Thanks, and have a good one.